On this video, I'm going to be showing you a full suspension rehash on this first generation Ford Raptor, go into what parts we went with and why, and oh yeah, we're moving up to a 37. All right, let's get to it. You may remember this particular truck from the first generation Ford Raptor buyer's guide I put together a few months ago. It's a 2011 that belongs to my friend Josh, who works as the manager of an off-road shop called Low Range 4x4 here in Wilmington, North Carolina. With 123,000 miles on the odometer, Josh's original suspension was long overdue for an overhaul. So after a few months of compiling parts, it was finally time to get it in the shop for some much needed upgrades. Starting out back, the first things to get pulled were the factory leaf springs, rear block, and shocks. It's worth noting that in order to remove the original leaf spring bolt on the driver's side, you'll either need to drop the gas tank or cut off the bolt head. Replacing the stock leaves is a multi-rate leaf pack from Icon. This standard series pack was paired with Icon's billet drop shackle, which combined with the taller leaves puts the truck fairly close to the stock height. Next up were the shocks. For this, Josh went with Fox Factory Race Series 3.0 external bypass. These are direct replacement shocks designed specifically for the first generation Ford Raptor. Going with the larger 3.0 series provides 60% more dampening over the stock ones. Unlike the factory shocks, which were internal bypass, the bypass channels on these shocks are externally mounted and fitted with knobs so you can dial in compression zones and rebound. I'll dive more into how these work and the practical benefits later in the video. The last piece of the rear suspension puzzle was new bump stop extensions from Icon. Josh's front end had recently developed a few new clunks and noises, most of which were indicative of worn bushings and ball joints. So this meant the front end would be torn down entirely, including complete removal of the upper and lower control arms. The lower arms on each side got new ball joints along with brand new control arm bushings. Since the upper control arm ball joint is a common wear point, Josh went ahead and upgraded the uppers with a set from Camberg. The Camberg arms use an 1.25" uniball to allow more travel and range of motion over a traditional ball joint. These arms are built from 4130 chromoly and use polyurethane bushings at the frame. To match the performance and ride quality of the rear, the front shocks were replaced with Fox 3.0 Factory Race Series internal bypass coilovers. These offer more dampening over the stock shocks and, like the rear, can be adjusted via external knob. While the replacement coilover simply bolts in the stock shock location, the reservoirs use a bolt-on mount to secure to the front frame rails. These keep the shock resis protected and the knobs easily accessible. Since these shocks do have an adjustment collar, you can fine-tune the ride height to your liking. Josh preferred a more level stance, so there was a little preload added to the coils to get the truck similar to how it was before, which is fairly level. After the truck was aligned, Josh rode on this setup for a few weeks while he waited for his new tires to arrive. Those would be a 37 by 1250 R17 Nitto Recon Grappler AT. These would be paired with his existing Method 305 wheels, which have a 0 offset and 4 3/4 inches of backspacing. Given the truck serves as a daily driver and an off-roader, he wanted something capable and quiet, which the Recon Grappler most certainly is. The fact that the all-terrains were actually the same weight as his outgoing 35s was also a benefit, as he wouldn't be adding any extra mass at the wheel. The only real downside to running a true-to-size 37 on the first generation Raptor is while they clear really well out back, not so much in the front. In fact, to get a full turning radius, Low Range had to use an air saw to trim the flare, a cutoff wheel to slice and then fold the pinch seam. An adjustable upper control arm would definitely help here, and this might be something that Josh will eventually move to if the tire contact is too much off-road. Okay, so let's go for a drive. Josh was nice enough to hand me over the keys to his truck so I can get an idea of just how this thing feels. I daily drove one of these trucks for quite a few years, so I was excited to see sort of the differences. One of the complaints that I always had with the original Fox shocks for mine is that sort of flutter valving that they kind of dial in there. Always felt like the front end was a little loose, so really curious to see how much tighter this feels. And it's worth noting that these shocks are both very adjustable. So up front, you can adjust low speed and high speed compression, and it also has an internal bypass feature. Let's pick at that. So the internal bypass feature basically means it's going to let bleed go depending on where the piston is. And bleed is basically letting fluid bypass back. And the advantage of that sort of bypass system is you can get a lot of really small imperfections out of the road by having a bypass. So you don't have to have so much valving where it's constantly stiff, where it can't take those little small imperfections up. Now, the low speed and high speed compression. Low speed is not the speed of the vehicle. This often gets very confused. What low speed compression actually is the low speed movement of the shock. Now, in the Jeep world, this is really easy to tell if you need more or less of. And one of the reasons why is sway. If the vehicle feels like it's swaying a lot, almost like you're, like a big boat going down the road, tightening up, increasing the low speed compression is going to tighten that up. How that's going to be a practical benefit for a truck like this really comes down to how you want the truck to feel in corner, and if you're adding extra weight, whether this thing has additional gear in the back, or you're adding, anything aftermarket where you're going to be putting more sprung weight on it, and that's going to impact sort of the roll feel of the vehicle. Turning up that will tighten it up. Now, the high speed, that's, in my mind, and how I try to explain to people, your more go fast knob. It is for those big impacts off-road. So if you're getting ready to really take off, try to go fast off-road, and you need that shock to be able to be ready for those big hits, that's what you're going to dial up that high-speed compression setting for. Now, it is absolutely worth talking about the rear and how it differs from the front in terms of adjustability. What you have out back is the ability to adjust 2 zones of compression and a zone of rebound. Now, compression, the way it's set up in the back is you're basically dialing in really soft sort of first zone stuff. So that's going to be those small imperfections that we were talking about earlier. And the second zone is going to be there for those harder hits. So longer into the stroke of the shock. And that's where you're probably going to crank it up a bit more, just like the high speed knob, if you're going to be going faster off road. So those are your 2 compression settings, the upward travel of the shock. For the rebound, what that actually does is control the speed at which the shock drops out. That's your down travel portion. And how that makes a difference from a practical standpoint is almost similar to how you're dialing in low speed compression. And the reason that is when you have, let's say you're towing your boat, or you've got extra load in the back and you're trying to dial in that sway so the shock doesn't feel like it's unloading so much, what you're going to do is you're going to dial up that rebound setting, and that's going to keep that shock from unloading as quickly. Now, for going fast off-road, it's really kind of an interesting balance, because you want that tire to feel the whole of whatever you're going over quickly, especially at like desert conditions and that sort of thing. So you don't want to have so much rebound valving where the shock can't get back down and the tire can't fill the hole. My personal approach to compression knobs is I like to dial everything back as soft as possible, and then from there I just slowly work my way up, usually 2 clicks at a time. That's where you're really going to start to feel the most. And if you feel like, oh man, it feels a little stiffer now, or I need to back off of it, you absolutely can. So it's something that you've got to spend some time with to really get the most benefit out of. Just bolting on this shock setup, in the front, it's already so dialed, you're not getting drastic changes out of those compression knobs. It's pretty close to how it's going to be. The rear can be more drastic, especially with that rebound valving. So you've got to spend some time, especially if you're still on a stock rear leaf pack. This one's got that aftermarket Icon pack, and this truck really needed it. Those original springs were pretty worn. Now, obviously, moving up to a 37-inch tall tire is going to play a pretty big factor in the performance of this truck. This generation Raptor does come with a 410 differential gear, so the tire upgrade didn't really make that big of an impact. As I mentioned in the video, this tire actually weighs the same as the 35s that he took off, so not huge performance you know, like loss. It's been calibrated with, he's got like a SCT tuner to calibrate correctly for the 37, so you know, as I'm driving it right now, the power feels really good. The braking does feel like it's it takes a little bit more pedal input, so you can feel that sort of like impact there, but in terms of overall drivability, it doesn't feel bad. To me, the steering feels about the same as it did with the 35 on it, and I've got limited time with Josh's truck, but I daily drove one of these things, like I say, for years with 35 on it, ironically with a 35-inch ridge grappler, so I'm fairly familiar with you know, that overall configuration. But yeah, I mean, it feels good. It doesn't seem like it's, you know, searching around too much for gears. Right now I'm in 5th, just dropped into 6th, about 50 miles an hour. So, I mean, it's smooth. Tires aren't super loud. Actually, tires really aren't loud at all. So, he's got a nice aftermarket. I think it's MBRP or Borla. I'll have to put in the link which actual exhaust system he has, but sounds nice. Truck drives nice. Josh was kind enough to give me the green light to go pop this thing off-road, just so I can get a little bit of feedback and experience with how these shocks do in the arena that he's mainly going to be using it, and that's the beach, because here in southeastern North Carolina we don't really have desert. We've got a lot of basically hunting roads that are basically gravel, and we got the beach. All right, so we are in 4-wheel drive high. We've got the ESC turned off, and we're gonna go see how this thing feels out here on the beach. Now, it might sound kind of funny because I think a lot of people maybe associate beach driving with like hard packed Daytona Beach, but our beach is pretty soft here, and we got a lot of these ruts and braking bumps and things like that, it'll give your suspension a workout way more than you might realize. So I figured this would be a good shot to get at least like an idea of how these things travel, and I've been out here with Josh enough to know how his factory suspension worked, that's for sure. Cross-rutting, not really hearing any not hearing any rub, anything like that, so that's good. It's just kind of cruising on top right now, sitting in 2nd gear. Man, this is great. I think he's going to be stoked on this. The power feels perfectly fine. I mean, it would do obviously better if I aired down the tires, but you know, I feel like this would be a better sign of how the suspension's going to be. And man, it's smooth. These trucks are so good with travel numbers and stuff like that from the factory, and even compared to my 3rd gen, like, this really doesn't feel bad at all. Overall, Josh is happy, and I personally think it looks great. The 37s fill out the wheel well very nicely, and the Recon Grappler looks great and performs excellent under the truck. If you do have any questions, just drop them in the comments. If you'd like to see what I am working on behind the scenes, feel free to check me out on all social media at Ollie Mansour Editor. As always, I appreciate you watching, and if you did enjoy the video, please consider subscribing to the Driving Line channel. We've got some more full-size truck content as well as suspension tech coming very soon. So if you did dig these videos, it's absolutely worth considering, and hit that bell icon so you can stay up to date on all the latest content.